Welcome to Tales from the Dark Side, hosted by me, best-selling author Conrad Jones. Tonight, the door creaks open, the lights grow dim, and you are invited into the shadows. Beyond this point lie disturbing events, twisted mysteries, and tales soaked in horror, some true, some even truer. Stories that crawl beneath your skin, whisper in the dark, and leave you questioning just how fragile your grip on reality really is. So grab yourself a brew, lock the doors, and listen carefully. Because once the darkness descends, it may never leave. This is Tales from the Dark Side, and the nightmares are only just beginning. The Priest and the Devil. Chapter 1. Detective Sergeant Hannah Quinn stared through the car window as they drove along the deserted roads bordering the Liverpool docks. The Mersey stretched across the horizon like a sheet of black steel. Clouds gathered overhead, bruised purple and grey, swallowing the last traces of daylight. The city skyline loomed in the distance, cranes standing motionless against the darkening sky like giant skeletal figures. A cold wind rattled the vehicle. October had arrived, early this year, and brought winter with her. Beside her, Detective Constable Mark Sullivan navigated the busy streets across the city to Princess Drive, which took them through to Buke. He turned left onto a road leading towards Old Swan, home of St. Oswald's Church. The call had come in from uniform less than an hour ago. They had been called on a welfare concern by the priest from St. Oswald's, who couldn't get a response from a colleague living in one of the church's properties, St. Jude's. It was a little unusual, at least that was how it had sounded, but now Hannah wasn't so sure. "Have you got the full address?" Mark asked. "Just let me check." Hannah checked her phone. St. Jude's house, next to St. Oswald's Church. "It should be over there," she pointed. "It's at the end of the track," Mark frowned, and she nodded. "Part of the old church property behind the school?" "That's the one." "I thought that place was empty." "Me too. There was a kidnap and serious sexual assault here a few years back. People fucking about with witchcraft, if I remember rightly." "Weren't they in the crypt underneath?" "Yeah, that's right. They saw the fire station a few hundred yards away the week before, taking statements about a fatal car crash. They could see the lights of the paraffin oil lamp pub, and the road curved between two derelict warehouses. Most of the buildings had been abandoned for decades. Their broken windows stared down at the road like empty eye sockets. Ahead, a wrought iron gate emerged from the gloom. One side hung crookedly from its hinges. They passed St. Oswald's and the old school, the graveyard and the civic hall to reach the path which led to St. Jude's. Beyond it stood a large Victorian house built from sandstone. The building, once grand, now looked forgotten, rotting and haunted. The bricks were stained black with damp. Several upstairs windows had been boarded over. Every curtain was closed and no lights showed anywhere. There were no signs of life. The place looked less like a house and more like a mausoleum. "Looks cosy and cheerful," Mark muttered. Hannah couldn't disagree, but a strange unease settled over her. The feeling arrived without warning, a cold instinct. Something was wrong here, very wrong. They parked near the front entrance and stepped outside. The wind carried the smell of salt water and rain. For a moment, neither officer moved. The house seemed to be watching them, waiting. "You ever get a feeling about a place?" Hannah asked. He nodded. "I have that feeling right now. Uniform couldn't get rid of this quickly enough. They forced the front door and then called us." Mark glanced at her. "You think we're about to find something unpleasant?" I think exactly that. The front garden had long since surrendered to the weeds. Dead ivy crawled across the walls, and a rusted bicycle lay half buried beneath overgrown bushes. The front door stood slightly ajar. Neither officer touched it. They simply stared. A silence hung over the property. No traffic, no birds, no distant city sounds. Nothing. A single uniformed officer was standing by the door. "Have you been inside?" Hannah asked without small talk. "No, the attending officers have finished their shift and gone home. I was sent to relieve them and wait for you." "Are you on your own?" Hannah asked. "No, my partner heard noises. He's checking round the back. Something is dead in there, I can smell it, hence the call to you." "Okay, let's go and see what we have." They stepped inside, then the smell hit them, rot, sweet, thick and overwhelming. "Fucking hell," Mark swore under his breath. "Oh God, what is that stink?" Hannah immediately pulled a mask from her pocket as the odour intensified with every step. It wasn't just decomposition. There was something else behind it. Something metallic, coppery like old blood. She pushed the door open and the hinges groaned. The sound echoed through the darkness inside. "Police!" she called. No answer. Only silence. The hallway beyond was dim. Piles of unopened posts littered the floor. Several letters had been trampled into the carpet, and the air felt stale and heavy, as though the house had been sealed shut for years. Mark switched on his torch, and the beam swept across peeling wallpaper, framed religious paintings hanging crookedly on the walls. A large crucifix had been inverted. Someone turned that cross upside down, like in The Exorcist, Mark said. "Oh, fuck off, Mark," Hannah said. "This place gives me the creeps as it is." Hannah shivered. They moved deeper inside. The kitchen was like a time hop to the 80s, but untouched. A Warburton's loaf sat on the table. Beside it rested a carving knife. A mug still stood beside the sink as if someone had intended to return to rinse it but never had. The smell grew stronger. It was coming from upstairs. "That stinks. Someone's definitely dead," he said. "It's definitely coming from upstairs," Hannah agreed. "Uh-oh!" A voice squawked. They froze. "They're here again." "What the fuck was that?" Hannah said. "They're here," it shouted. "Don't go down there." Mark pointed his torch at the source, a parrot cage. The African grey inside was old and losing his feathers. His voice was mimicking a middle-aged man. "They're here again," it squawked loudly. "Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Don't go down there." "Fucking hell, I don't need this," Hannah said. "Stupid bird." "I shit my pants then," Mark said. "Let's go upstairs and see what's there." "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear," the parrot shouted. "They're here again." Hannah felt her pulse quicken. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, but she climbed the staircase anyway. Each step creaked beneath her boots. The landing above disappeared into darkness. March's torch beam swept across an open bathroom door and he stopped. "Hannah, take a look in here." She followed the light. Dark stains marked the tiles, brownish black. It was old dried blood. A lot of blood. The scene felt unreal, like a nightmare. An elderly priest lay bound in the bath, rope cut deeply into his wrists. His head hung forward, motionless. His hair was matted with blood, a long gash along the scalp. Some of his fingers were missing, and the blood splatter was arced across the tiles above him. The sight sent a chill through her. Is he dead? Mark put 2 fingers on his pulse and couldn't feel anything. Can't find a pulse. He looks dead. Put it this way, he's not going anywhere. Let's check the other rooms. What the fuck happened here? Hannah said. Fuck knows, Mark said. I'm going to call for backup, arm response, paramedics. Do we need arm response? Better safe than sorry, Mark said. The place hasn't been searched properly yet. Mark didn't take the chance because neither of them knew what was going on. They continued down the landing. There were 3 bedrooms, all closed. The smell was unbearable now, a physical thing cloying and choking, pressing against them. The first room was empty, and the second contained only a single bed and wardrobe, which looked made up and in use. There was dirty underwear on the floor, boxer shorts complete with skid marks, socks, a couple of vests, a scruffy pair of Crocs. A clean shirt and dog collar hung on the back of the door. This must be the priest's bedroom. The third door stood partially open. Darkness waited beyond it. Hannah swallowed and then pushed the door wider. The room beyond stole the air from her lungs, and for a moment neither officer moved. Neither spoke.
Looking for your next dark obsession? Best-selling thriller author Conrad Jones has gripped over 3 million readers worldwide, with 38 brutal, fast-paced thrillers across 6 explosive series. From serial killers to organised crime and psychological terror, these books don't let you go. Search Conrad Jones on Amazon today, if you dare.
The smell hit them before the door opened. Mark paused on the landing, his hand resting on the bedroom handle. Beneath the stale odour of an unheated house lingered something metallic and sour that every experienced officer recognised instantly. Death. Wait a second. Beside him, Hannah pulled a latex glove tight around her wrist. Are you ready? She asked. Mark nodded. The door creaked inward, and for a moment neither officer moved. The room beyond seemed frozen in time. Heavy curtains blocked the daylight. Dozens of candles flickered throughout the darkness, their names, flames dancing in unseen draughts. Melted wax stripped onto the floorboards, and carpets like pale tears. What the hell? Hannah whispered. At the centre of the room, marked in black paint across the wooden floorboards, was a huge 9-pointed star. A man lay inside it, flat on his back, motionless. His arms and legs were severed and spread wide as though arranged deliberately after death. His head was at the centre of the star. Mark felt his stomach tighten. The victim's head had suffered catastrophic trauma before it was removed. The wall behind him bore the evidence of it. Years of service had shown them murders, suicides, fatal crashes and domestic bloodbaths, but there was something uniquely disturbing about the occult theatricals of this case. The deliberate staging of the body, the message it seemed desperate to send. Hannah slowly wept her torch around the room. Every wall had been covered in symbols. Some were crude circles with intersecting lines. Others resembled ancient runes. Across the wallpaper, painted repeatedly in thick black strokes, was the same number, 666. It was written again and again above the bed, around the window frame and across the wardrobe doors. 666. The room looked less like a crime scene and more like the set of a Netflix nightmare. Control, Hannah said quietly into her radio. Confirm Socko, homicide team and forensic photographer are en route, please. A burst of static answered. They're already on the way. Mark stepped carefully across the threshold without entering the star itself. His eyes moved over every detail. No sign of struggle, no overturned furniture, no obvious forced entry, just candles and symbols and a corpse and silence. One candle guttered violently. The sudden movement made both officers glance towards it. For a split second, the shadows cast by the flames appeared to move independently across the walls. Hannah looked away first. The candles hadn't been burning long. Do you think they were interrupted? No, this one's staged. He crouched near the doorway, studying the floor. Somebody wanted this found exactly like this. The detective's gaze settled on a section of wall opposite the bed. Among the endless symbols and repeated sixes was a single line of writing, different from the rest, written in what looked like hurried strokes. 3 words. The room seemed to grow colder. Hannah stared at the message. What does that mean? He opened the door to hell. Matt didn't answer because for the first time since opening the front door, he had noticed something else. The wardrobe. One of its doors stood slightly ajar. Only an inch, but just enough to reveal the darkness beyond, and judging by the thin layer of dust disturbed on the floorboards, it hadn't been open when the candles were lit. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he raised his torch towards the gap. Something inside the wardrobe reflected the beam. 2 tiny points of light, like eyes, staring back. He pulled open the door, and they vanished. The wardrobe was empty. Did you see that? He asked. The officers froze. Neither moved, and somewhere in the house below, a floorboard creaked. I could swear I saw eyes in the wardrobe. Uh-oh, uh-oh, the parrot called. He's back, he's back, he's back, he's back. I'm going to kill that fucking parrot, Mark said. Mark circled the star and studied the dead man. He was very dead indeed. The remains of his head covered the wall behind him. Blood and brains had dried across the ceiling, across the floor and across the furniture. A sawn-off shotgun rested on the floor between his amputated legs, barrels still pointing upwards. Flies buzzed throughout the room, hundreds of them. The sound filled the silence, a low droning hum. He looked back at the bathroom. The priest hadn't moved. The dead man stared at nothing, and yet Hannah couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was in the room, watching. She fought the urge to back away, and Mark stepped forward cautiously. This is fucked up. No shit, Sherlock, she said. What do you think? I'm processing what I can see, and I'm getting nowhere. There was a loud bang from the kitchen. Uh-oh, 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 the grey called. He's back, he's back, he's back. Shall I go and see what the bird's up to? No. Stay up here and wait for backup, Mark said. That bird is giving me the shivers. Do you think it can see something we can't? Uh-oh, 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 he's back. Neither officer had an answer to what had happened, but the room felt wrong on so many levels. Not because of the bodies or the blood. Something else, something impossible to explain. Hannah's gaze travelled across the walls. The crucifix above the bed had been turned upside down. Words had been scratched into the wallpaper, deep grooves written over and over. The same phrase, the same warning. He is back. He is back. He is back. That's what the parrot is shouting. A cold shiver crawled up her spine. Mark, look there. What? Look there. She pointed at the bathroom and his face paled. The flies suddenly became louder and the room seemed colder, much colder. Then something moved. Hannah froze. Fuck. The priest's hand twitched. Once, twice. Mark stared. No way, he's still alive. How long on the ambulance? It's on Edge Lane. The old man's head shifted slightly and a wet rasp escaped his throat, a sound barely human. The detectives looked at each other, but neither spoke, neither breathed. Slowly, very slowly, the priest lifted his head and his eyes opened, bloodshot and scarred, scared, terrified, as though he'd spent days staring directly into hell, and then he whispered 3 words. Oh dear, he's back. The lights throughout the house went out at once. The room plunged into darkness, and somewhere below them, deep inside the house, a door slammed shut. Uh-oh, don't go down there, they're still here, the parrot squawked. The story will be continued shortly. Thank you for listening to the Tales of the Dark Side by me, Conrad Jones.
You've been listening to Tales from the Dark Side with best-selling author Conrad Jones. This podcast is produced by me, Laura Raymond, with music from Stanley T. Jones. Find links to Conrad Jones's books and his Amazon page in the show notes of this podcast, or search on Amazon.